Good morning, everyone. It is Wednesday, August 12th at about 9 a.m. in the morning. My name is Larry Cedar, and I'm back with you for another session on what I call scanning, spelled Sqanning. It's a relaxation technique which utilizes the incremental release of muscular tension to achieve a deep state of physical and ultimately emotional and mental calm. So that's why we're here. So we try to do this as frequently as possible. Sometimes it's every other day, sometimes it's every third day, but sometimes it's every day. And as it turns out, I've been here a few days in a row. So I'm really happy about that. Glad to be here. I do practice this technique on my own, typically half-hour to 1-hour sessions. And then I try to do, if I can, one publicly in which I share this, my session basically with you. I talk about what I'm doing and how the technique works. So basically, it is a form of relaxation. It concentrates primarily on the physical relaxation of the body as a means to achieve emotional and mental calm. So some techniques will say, well, we're going to talk, we're going to think, we're going to find concepts and ideas that will, from our mind, go to relax our body. This is the opposite. We work from the body to the mind. You know, one of the quickest ways to get out of your own head when you're having negative thoughts or compulsive thoughts or you're depressed or nervous or whatever the issue is to concentrate fully on the musculature. It just forces your body to focus on that process and takes so much energy. If you fully concentrate, I believe if you fully concentrate on relaxing a muscle, you can't be thinking about anything else at the same time. So it's a way of doing that, pulling you out of your head into your body. So today we're going to work specifically on one aspect of the technique. I'm going to say a little bit about it, but I'm going to assume that many of the people who are coming to this session have come before and they've heard the background and the origins of the technique. But today we're going to focus on the incremental part of incremental release. I'm going to focus on how important it is to acknowledge and validate the value of even the slightest movement towards relaxation. And I've said this before, this technique is based on the idea that the universe is made up of two basic concepts, contraction or expansion. We use the muscles as a metaphor for that because muscles can contract or release. We're trying to move ourselves from a state of contraction, squeeze your hands together, to a state of expansion. Here's a fact. You cannot expand and contract at the same time. So any movement at all towards expansion, muscular release, is a movement away from contraction. And I'm emphasizing that, any movement, because I think it's important with this technique that people acknowledge that even the smallest change, even the smallest movement towards expansion or relaxation is a success, is a victory. And it's important to acknowledge that because many times in this process you'll find yourself going, this isn't working. I still feel tense. I still feel anxious. I still feel obsessed with thoughts. I still feel depressed, which is the flip side of contraction. It's a depression. It's emotional contraction. I'm not feeling anything. I'm not sensing any change. And it's really important to acknowledge in the course of practicing what I call scanning, incremental muscular release, that even the smallest change is a victory. Even the smallest change matters. And I want to focus a lot on that today because there's a tendency, as I said, with these techniques, I guess you could call them self-help techniques, to think if I'm not getting a result, if I'm not feeling a change, it's not working. And you get frustrated and angry and you don't want to practice it anymore. And I practice this myself on a daily basis. And I have days when I'm just not feeling any success. I'm not able to relax. And then I'll go, but am I able to relax a little bit? A tiny bit? Am I able to let go of this muscular tension 1%? And what I've realized is that small changes matter because this process is cumulative, because every teaspoon of relaxation you add to the cup eventually will fill up that cup. It's important to acknowledge it, not just for that reason, because it will ultimately lead to relaxation, but because it puts value on even the slightest changes, and that encourages you to keep practicing. If you say, well, I felt a small change. If you were here with me now and I say, relax the muscles of your face, 3, 2, 1, release. And I'll say, how did that feel? And you'll say, well, I barely felt anything. I say, but did you feel something? Did you feel the slightest change? And you say, well, I felt a little something. I say, that's it. That's all we're looking for. The slightest changes. So that's all I want to say by way of introduction. I really want to concentrate mostly on the technique today. Fundamentally, this process, this concept, this practice of scanning is based on the idea of a man named Thaddeus Golas, who wrote The Lazy Man's Guide to Enlightenment, that the universe is basically made up of two processes: contraction, squeeze your hands together, and expansion, release. Okay, that's the fundamental basis of this technique. When we are contracted, Contraction is the stuff of life. That's doing things, writing things, saying things, thinking things, the bringing together of materials, thoughts, and ideas for the purposes of achieving a goal. When we are contracted, we are achieving things, we are doing. But when we become overly contracted, we become restricted, limited, generally speaking, unhappy, we feel bad. So we come to techniques like these, presumably because we feel bad and we want to feel better. So how do we put ourselves into a state of better when we're overly contracted? Simple, we expand. This is you contracted, squeeze your hands together. This is you expanded, release. So that basic feeling, squeeze your hands together and release. That basic feeling, squeeze your hands together, release, is what we're going to practice today. We're going to use the muscles as a metaphor for our very state of being. They're the perfect metaphor because muscles can either contract or expand. And we're going to practice incremental muscular release and see what that does for our overall state of being, in particular, our emotional freedom and our mental calm. That's all we're doing. So now, 7 minutes, not bad. I usually talk longer than that before we start. Let's just get started. Squeeze your hands together, tight, tight, tight. That's contraction. Okay, so this is a physical process. So you're going to pay a lot of attention today to how you feel. How am I feeling? How does this feel when I do this? How does it feel different when I do that? That's what we're doing. Concentrating on feelings. No philosophies, no religions, no politics, no ideas, just feeling. So squeeze your hands together, tight, tight, tight. That's contraction. See what that feels like. Just take a moment. We're working today on the incremental release of muscular tension. And we're going to see what that does for our overall state of being. So squeeze tight. How does it feel to be contracted? Okay, well, let's note first of all that it's good to be strong. Strength, muscles are the stuff of doing, achieving. So contraction's a good thing. It's how we get things done in life. But when we become overly contracted, it starts to hurt, feel uncomfortable. We feel restricted, limited, tense. So what we do is 3, 2, 1, release. Now see what that feels like. To have just let go of muscular tension, the smallest amount. Take a deep breath. Okay, so we just released an incremental amount of muscular tension. That's all we did. And we're going to do that now repeatedly. We're going to keep doing that. We're going to keep reinforcing that practice, that process of incremental muscular release. What we're going to do is eventually work through our entire body and try to release all the muscular tension in our body. You will find ultimately that this will calm your mind, because the mind is a muscle of sorts. It contracts or expands. We form words, thoughts, ideas, worries, anxieties. These are contractions. As your body begins to expand, your mind will begin to expand and you will feel calm. So let's just keep doing this. Squeeze your hands together, tight, tight, tight. Again, we're just looking for subtle changes today. Today's all about subtlety. We're just trying to shift the dial 1%. 3, 2, 1, release. How does that feel different? Take a deep breath. Again, we just expanded 1%. And sit in stillness and silence and see how that feels. Today, what I would like to convey, if I convey nothing else, is that small changes matter. When you're dealing with your state of consciousness, small changes matter. So if you find yourself overwhelmed, tense, anxious, worried, constricted, tight, if you're working too hard, things aren't coming together for you, don't discount the smallest shift towards expansion. If you're sitting somewhere and you're completely uptight and wired and nothing's working and you're worried and anxious or depressed, say, I'm going to make a slight change. Squeeze my hands together. 3, 2, 1, release. I just expanded. Acknowledge that. See what it feels like. And now continue to gently and incrementally move yourself in that direction. Again, the whole idea is to not put so much stock in big changes, in huge revelations, in giant shifts of consciousness. Change in terms of your state of being happens incrementally, in small changes. If you try to push yourself too fast, your body will rebel, revolt, resist. Subtle changes, micro-dosing. Squeeze your hands together. 3, 2, 1, release. How did that feel? Take a deep breath. Again, we just expanded 1%. Now I'll note here, those of you who have been here before have heard me say this, but deep breaths are fabulously healing. So as you begin to expand, you're going to feel an impulse to take deep breaths. That's your body coming back into itself, allowing itself to relax, release, to breathe, to expand. So take deep breaths. I always say that if you could do nothing else, if you have 10 15 minutes to get your shit together. If things are going bad, just sit down and take a series of deep breaths and sit in stillness and silence and see what that does for you. And then repeat. So again, today's all about subtlety. So we're going to do it again. Squeeze your hands together, tight, tight, tight. Now we're looking for a subtle shift, a slight change towards expansion. 3, 2, 1, release. Note how that feels. Pressure's off. No more doing, just being. Take a deep breath. Sit for a moment, stillness and silence. Stillness and silence is also a shift towards expansion. Take a small moment of stillness and silence. Again, today's all about subtlety. Small changes. One more time. Squeeze your hands together. That's contraction. Tight, tight, tight. See what that feels like. On my count. 3, 2, 1. Release. See what that feels like. Take a deep breath. What's that expression? The journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step. That no expression ever applied more appropriately or perfectly to this process. Remember, once you begin to expand, you've stopped contracting. So one step in the direction of expansion is the beginning of the journey. You are no longer going this way. You're no longer going this way toward contraction. You've started moving this way towards expansion. So acknowledge the value and importance of even that smallest step. You know, sometimes you'll be with someone and they'll be very worked up and you're trying to help them and you'll say to them, hey, look, just sit down for a second. Take a breath. Just sit down. Just stop. I can't. Just sit down. Just 1 second. Just for 1 second. Sit down. Take a breath. And they go, okay. I'm so upset. I know, just sit still. And they go, okay. And sometimes you'll see a complete shift in their mood. They made the decision. They took that small, simple step to move away from contraction towards expansion. Sometimes that's all that's necessary. Once you've stopped going this way and started going this way, you're going this way. You can't contract and expand at the same time. So even the smallest movement towards expansion, the smallest release, really counts. Again, today, this session is all about subtle changes and the value of subtle changes. So again, if you're feeling overwhelmed, if you're feeling depressed, if you're feeling tense, if you're feeling anxious, if you're feeling anything that is bad, you're basically overcontracted, take a small step towards expansion, a small step, and acknowledge it. Squeeze, 3, 2, 1, release. There, I just did it. Take a deep breath. Small changes. You know, there are people that have said to me, if you think it, it happens. If you think it, it's done. There's a lot of truth to that. I'm an actor. In film acting, they say if you think it, it will read. If you think, I love you, that will read. You don't have to go, I love you. Small changes. Intention. Small intentions matter. They count. So we've just moved ourselves a small degree towards expansion, very gently, in a very subtle way. Didn't take a lot of effort. It was almost more of a thought than anything. You know, someone told me the way to make a perfect martini is you fill a glass with gin, then you take the bottle of vermouth, you know, martini is gin and vermouth, and you open the bottle, you put your hand over the bottle, and then you pass that over the glass. In other words, you never poured any vermouth in there, but you kind of passed it over the glass. Well, that's all we're doing. We're just thinking about that vermouth. We're just adding a little bit of vermouth without really doing anything. Very subtle change. And you'll note, you'll feel different. You'll note the power of subtlety, the power of incremental change. So now we've started the process of expansion, what I call scanning. Because what we're going to do now is continue this process of scanning. And by scanning, I mean scanning the body, searching our body for pockets of muscular tension. And we're going to incrementally release them. Very subtle. This isn't a big deal. It's the intention more than anything that moves the dial. So we're going to start with the face. We're going to go through the different muscular zones of the body, and I've broken it down into little special zones. You can do whatever you like, but let's start with the face. Just like the fist, release. We're going to do that to the face now. Think about your face, and on my count, release the tension in your face, a small amount. 3, 2, 1, release. What did you feel? You say, well, I felt nothing. Okay, try it again. The face, 3, 2, 1, release. Deep breath. Again, we're gently nudging ourselves towards an expanded state. If you nudge gently, your body won't be so resistant. Your body is holding on to tension. We carry a low level of muscular tension basically 24 hours a day. Even when we're sleeping, we're kind of in a hold position. We're kind of in a mentally frozen position. We take up positions in life to protect ourselves. I call them positions because you're basically frozen. This is what I'm thinking. This is what I'm going to do. This is how I am. So the body does that to be secure, to feel safe. So we have to, if you say move, relax, it goes, no, I'm holding on to my attention. My attention is my safety and security. How dare you? But if you say, hey, can you just relax the tension in your fist just a little bit? Why? Just try it. Okay. So you can trick your body into moving towards expansion by not pushing it, not forcing it, but gently nudging it. The face, 3, 2, 1, release. Now, if you felt any change, you've won. Again, today's all about subtlety and incremental release. We're looking for subtle changes. I'm talking about this today because, again, I practice this myself on a daily basis, and I have my challenges in life, like we all do. Emotional, mental, physical challenges. We all do. And there's times when I get into what I call a very deep, deep hole. And I don't think anything will get me out of it in terms of being in trouble on any one of those levels. But I've learned that if I start small and begin gently releasing the muscular tension in any part of my body, it doesn't matter. Pick the easiest one. Pick the one that's most available. I can begin to move myself back towards an expanded state. Start small. And again, I'll repeat. Pick the area that's easiest for you. If the hands are the only area where you feel like you can consciously 3, 2, 1 release, then just do your hands. Just go 3, 2, 1 release, or do this 3, 2, 1 release. Take a deep breath and do it again. 3, 2, 1 release. Any part of the body works. You pick. I'm going to take you through several zones, but you pick. Take the path of least resistance. This doesn't have to be hard. This doesn't have to be challenging. This doesn't have to be frustrating. It should be easy. It should be a gentle process, a gentle movement towards expansion. Okay? The face, 3, 2, 1, release. Top of the head. How do I release the muscles in the top of the head? I don't even know what that feels like. Okay, that's fine. Let's explore that. See if you can feel, if you can raise your consciousness of the muscles of the top of your head. Can you feel it if you think about it? Yes. I can feel it. Sometimes move it around a little bit. There it is. Release the tension in the muscles in the top of your head. 1%. 3, 2, 1, release. Did you feel a change? Any change counts. Again, today in particular is all about incremental, tiny, tiny release. This can be very easy. You're making subtle, tiny changes. Not only do they add up, but they reinforce this process. And you will see, as you begin to release the muscular tension in your body, your mind will clear. The mind is a muscle of sorts. It's holding on to obsessive thoughts, maybe negative thoughts, ideas, plans, worries, concerns, politics, religion, social media. It's got lots of things bouncing around up there. As you begin to relax the body, the muscles of the entire body will follow, as will the brain. It will begin to let go, and all these obsessive thoughts will float away. I've done this. I've experienced it. I've been, as I said, in deep, dark places when I thought I'll never bring myself out of this state of mind. When I did this process, if I was able to muscularly release the tension in my body, my mind cleared. It works. It works. Top of the head, 3, 2, 1, release. Again, you're looking for very subtle changes. Very, very subtle changes. Again, I always use the analogy of the different forms of acting, theater, TV, and film. In theater, I'll just tell this very quickly. In theater, you would say, hi. In television, you would go, hi. In film, you would go, that's an old acting joke. The upshot of that analogy being subtle. Subtle. You'd be amazed at how small a change you can make and have it make a difference. Top of the head, 3, 2, 1, release. Back of the head, think about what the muscles in the back of the head feel. And we're going to move through the entire body. That's what we're doing. We're moving through the entire body. In my sessions, when I pass through once, I'll do it again. I call it cycling. I'll just keep moving through the body, each time moving a little bit further towards expansion. The muscles of the back of the head. 3, 2, 1, release. Again, 3, 2, 1, release. And also, to repeat, I'm picking these zones. Pick any one that works for you. And start with the one that's easiest. The face is pretty easy because we use our faces a lot, just like our hands. So the ability to control those muscles, to release those muscles, is more familiar. So 3, 2, 1, like watch my face, 3, 2, 1. So you can do that. So just, you want to feel that subtle, slight change, that subtle, slight shift. Now you'll find, as you begin to practice this technique, what's great about it is you could be anywhere and not say a word and say, I need to relax. You could be about to go into an audition. People will see me at auditions. You'll see me doing this. Don't call me on it. But you'll see me sitting there and I'm not really doing anything. You'll say, what's he doing? I'll have my eyes closed sometimes and all I'm doing is 3, 2, 1, release. I'm letting my shoulders drop. No one has to know. No one has to see it. It's a subtle, slight change. So we did the face, the top of the head, the back of the head. The next zone is the neck. Think about your neck. Tension in your neck. We all hold a lot of tension in our neck. 3, 2, 1, release. Did you feel that slight, subtle change? You're not only practicing this to improve your ability to release those muscles, but to heighten your sensitivity of those muscles. In other words, ultimately what you should be able to do is sit in a chair, lie in bed, and be able to literally, as I call it, scan your body, looking, searching for pockets of tension. So you're going to go to your knee and say, how's my knee feeling? See if I can release the tension in my knee. 3, 2, 1, release. Now, you might not feel anything. You might go, I don't even know how to do that. I don't know what that feels like. But just practice. Build a heightened awareness of the muscular tension in your body. What starts to happen, because you're more conscious of the tension in your body, you don't get so far out of control. You don't get so deep into trouble, into tension, because as you start to feel it come on more readily, a lot of times in life we're very unconscious of what our body's doing. We just react, and suddenly we find ourselves a wreck and we don't know how we got there. It's because you weren't monitoring yourself as you went. Ideally, what you do is you go, okay, I'm starting to get really wound up here. I got to pull this back. I can feel what's happening. I'm going to take a moment. 3, 2, 1, release. I'm going to take a deep breath. I'm going to keep that contractive process in check. I'm not going to let it get too far. Now, sometimes we can't, and we just get totally contracted. Circumstances come up. We got to go to work. We got to work on a relationship. Things are happening. We're just doing, okay, it happens. But now you're more conscious of where you are. You're aware that I've come to a very contracted state, and you can, bit by bit, incrementally, bring yourself back to a state of expansion. So the neck, 3, 2, 1, release. And we've been doing this about 20 minutes. You see how we've moved, how we've advanced ourselves into a deeper state of expansion on a very subtle level. We're sitting more quietly. We're more comfortable in our skin. The shoulders, let them drop 1 millimeter. 3, 2, 1, release. Just let them drop. Looking for subtle, slight changes. Take a deep breath. Sit for 15 seconds. Scan your body. How are you feeling? Do you feel pockets of tension anywhere? Now, I will just be honest with you. I always start to get a little emotional. As I start to relax, tension blocks emotion and feeling. As I start to let go of tension, previously suppressed feelings begin to emerge. And those may be all the things I didn't want to think about or deal with. Those 100 times a day I felt like crying because I was so tense or anxious or whatever was going on. They start to come back up. I tuck them away. As you release tension, emotions, feelings emerge. That's great. Take deep breaths. Feel. This is a very sensual process. You're bringing yourself back into your body. You've been contracted. You've been squeezed off. You've put yourself out of touch with yourself. Now you're coming back into yourself. What happens is when you come back into yourself, when you begin to feel, when you feel throbbing, when you feel tingling, when you start to re-enter your body, when the tension is released, you become very comfortable just sitting and being in the moment. It's that Zen thing they always talk about. You're at peace in the moment. You're comfortable in your own skin. Your thoughts aren't pulling you around like, by a chain, just dragging you all over the place and making you crazy. You've detached from all those external processes and you're just comfortable, just being. That's expansion. Zone 6, the chest, down the stomach and into the waist. 3, 2, 1, release. Subtle changes. Zone 7, the back. 3, 2, 1, release. Let's do the back again. 3, 2, 1, release. The pelvis, zone 8. 3, 2, 1, release. Now when I say the pelvis, I always say this every time. The reason it's so important, it is the area of sexuality and waste elimination. So it's a kind of very embarrassing kind of fraught with feeling sort of zone. We're very kind of protective. We tend to contract in that area just to protect ourselves from embarrassment, loss of control, whatever comes with that. You know what I'm talking about. So be very conscious of letting go of the tension in that area. Sometimes it makes us uncomfortable. I can't let go of that control. You can. You can let go of a lot of muscular tension that's truly unnecessary and be just fine. As I say, feelings are only uncomfortable when they are emerging. Once they're out, they feel great. So be okay with a little bit of discomfort. You're shifting your consciousness, your state of consciousness. You're going from a place of self-protection into a place of vulnerability and openness. It can feel a little scary, a little weird, a little unsettling. Let it. It'll pass. Zone 9, down the legs, across the knees, and into the feet. Try to relax your feet. 3, 2, 1, release. Now, it's amazing how sometimes we can go for days without thinking about our bodies. So sometimes you go, relax my feet. I got to stop doing what I'm doing, thinking about what I'm thinking, going where I'm going to concentrate on my feet. That's a little weird. And that makes me a little uncomfortable, truthfully. That's what I feel sometimes. Because I have to stop, detach myself from all these things I've involved myself in: social media, books, television, video games, people, news, politics, religion. I've detached myself from all of those things. I've stepped away from all those things which I feel instinctively define me, protect me, to a place of just being. And it feels very naked and vulnerable, a little scary. But that's good. This place of being, detached from all the external processes, is your true self. This is how you start when you come into this world, and this is how you end, with nothing but you. If you can find a way to be at peace with just being, you will have found true peace, because then you don't need anything. You don't need anything to feel who you are. You can sense, you feel who you are, just because you've come back into your body. The feet, 3, 2, 1, release. So now, I'm really going to keep this to a half an hour today, so I'm going to use these last 2 minutes to basically sum up. We started out by just heightening our awareness of contraction and expansion. That's all we're doing. We're moving ourselves from a state of contraction, squeeze your hands together, to a state of expansion in very subtle, slight ways. And we're monitoring those changes to see how they feel. We're registering them. We're taking lots of deep breaths, many moments of silence and stillness to come back into our body, to expand, particularly muscular tension, to release muscular tension. So this is typically what I would take myself through in my own personal sessions, but I would take typically an hour, and I will cycle through those zones. And every time I go to a zone, and that can be anywhere you like, in any order you like, all I'm doing is 3, 2, 1, the face, releasing, and studying and heightening your consciousness of that sense of muscular release. Very subtle, subtle changes. You know, I don't know if you've ever seen those museums or wherever. They have someone painted the Last Supper on the head of a pin. And there's these guys that actually will take tiny microscopic brushes and they'll paint a painting on the head of a pin, and they'll have a big magnifying glass so you can see they actually did it. So we're working with a very fine brush here. We're making very slight, subtle changes. You know, these days, everything seems to be broad and big. And if it's not loud and obnoxious, or, you know, has an incredible beat or whatever, it just has no effect. We're taking the opposite approach. We're seeing how small a change can you make? How small, how subtle a change can you make? And acknowledge that change and see the difference it makes. Micro adjustments, incremental muscular release. It's a very subtle, very simple, very slow, very gradual, very peaceful process. But it works. So that's it for today. Again, it's called Sqanning, Sqanning. You're literally scanning your body for muscular tension. It is the incremental release of muscular tension to achieve a deep state of primarily physical, followed by emotional and mental calm. Practice as often as you like. 5 minutes is as effective as an hour. Explore, discover what works for you. We're all very different, and yet we're all very similar. All I can do is share with you how it feels for me and hope that that resonates for you. I will tell you this. As I said, Thaddeus Golis, my mentor of sorts, because he wrote this book, which I study all the time, said, we are either at any given moment in a state of contraction or expansion. You can't do both at the same time. Contraction is the stuff of life. It's necessary. We do it. But we can become overly contracted. And when we become aware of that, when we become sensitive to our state of being, we have the power, we have the control to move the dial. We can move ourselves into a state of expansion simply by deciding to do it. Subtle changes matter. Find ways to expand, particularly muscular release, and you will reap enormous benefits. That's today's session. I will repost this session on my personal Facebook page. It'll stay up for like 24 hours. I also move it over to the Sqanning Facebook page, Sqanning. And you can like and follow that page if you want to hear when there's new sessions. And try to be here, as frequently as possible. Usually sometime in the morning, but it varies. I hope this has been helpful for you. It's basically something which I've discovered has solved a multitude of issues in my life. That's why I practice it so religiously. I come here and I share this practice with you in the hopes that it will also benefit you. And I end the session the same way I always do with rule number 1. Love yourself. There's an infinite amount of love available in the universe. Take as much as you need and give it to yourself. And when you've filled yourself up and there's so much that it's spilling over, take the extra and pass it around. We could all use it. Have a great day. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.